Good morning. It's 7. Should I press the snooze? Maybe not. I'll just stop it. Today is June 3rd. Social neuroscience is a new field, but the debate over the origin and nature of human social behavior is probably as old as human civilization itself. Philosophers of centuries past didn't have access to studies like those of the lambs and wolves. However, as long as they have speculated about the mind, they have debated the degree to which we are in conscious control of our lives. They used different conceptual frameworks, but observers of human behavior from Plato to Kant usually found it necessary to distinguish between direct causes of behavior, those motivations we can be in touch with through introspection, and hidden internal influences that could only be inferred. In modern times, as I mentioned, it was Freud who popularized the unconscious. But though his theories had great prominence in clinical applications and popular culture, Freud influenced books and films more than he influenced experimental research in psychology. Through most of the 20th century, empirical psychologists simply neglected the unconscious mind. Odd as it may sound today, in the first half of that century, which was dominated by those in the behaviorist movement, psychologists even sought to do away with the concept of mind altogether. They not only likened the behavior of humans to that of animals, they considered both humans and animals to be merely complex machines that responded to stimuli in predictable ways. However, though the introspection elicited by Freud and his followers is unreliable, and the inner workings of the brain were, at the time, unobservable, the idea of completely disregarding the human mind and its thought process struck many as absurd. By the end of the 1950s, the behaviorist movement had faded, and two new movements grew in its place and flourished. One was cognitive psychology, inspired by the computer revolution. Like behaviorism, cognitive psychology generally rejected introspection. But cognitive psychology did embrace the idea that we have internal mental states such as beliefs. It treated people as information systems that process those mental states much in the way a computer processes data. The other movement was social psychology, which aimed to understand how people's mental states are affected by presence of others. With these movements, psychology once again embraced the study of the mind, but both movements remained dubious about the mysterious unconscious. After all, if people are unaware of subliminal processes, and if one cannot trace them within the brain, what evidence do we have that such mental states are even real? In both cognitive and social psychology, the term unconscious was thus usually avoided. Still, like the therapist who doggedly brings you back again and again to the subject of your father, a handful of scientists kept doing experiments whose outcomes suggested that such processes had to be investigated because they played such an important role in social interactions. By the 1980s, a number of now classic experiments offered powerful evidence of the unconscious, automatic components of social behavior. Some of those early studies of behavior drew directly on Frederick Bartlett's memory theories. Bartlett believed that the distortions he had observed in people's recall could be accounted for by assuming that their minds followed certain unconscious mental scripts, which were aimed at filling in gaps and making information consistent with the way they thought the world to be. Wondering whether our social behavior might also be influenced by some unconscious playbook, Cognitive psychologists postulated the idea that many of our daily actions proceed according to predetermined mental scripts, that they are, in fact, mindless. In one test of that idea, an experimenter sat in a library and kept an eye on the copier. When someone approached it, the experimenter rushed up and tried to cut in front, saying, "Excuse me, I have 5 pages." I've read this experiment a few times. Let me skip this experiment and go to the next paragraph. The first sign. Let me start from here. In their research report, those who conducted this experiment wrote that to unconsciously follow preset scripts may indeed be the most common mode of social interaction. While such mindlessness may at times be troublesome, this degree of selective attention, of tuning the external world out, may be an achievement. Indeed, in evolutionary terms, here is the unconscious performing its usual duty, automating tasks so as to free us to respond to other demands of the environment. In modern society, that is the essence of multitasking, the ability to focus on one task while, with the aid of automatic scripts, performing others. Throughout the 1980s, study after study seemed to show that, because of the influence of the unconscious, people did not realize the reasons for their feelings, behavior, and judgments of other people, or how they communicated non-verbally with others. Eventually, psychologists had to rethink the role of conscious thought in social interactions, and so the term unconscious was resurrected, though also sometimes replaced by the untainted non-conscious, or more specific terms like automatic, implicit, or uncontrolled. But these experiments were mainly clever behavioral studies, and psychologists could still only guess at the mental process that caused the participants' reactions. You can tell a lot about a restaurant's recipes by sitting at the table and sampling the food, but to really know what is going on, you have to look in the kitchen, and the human brain remained hidden behind the closed doors of the skull, its inner workings virtually as inaccessible as they had been a certain century earlier. All right. It's good to review this paragraph. I'm now going to take a shower. Good night. Bye.